The biting cold seeps through my bones as I shuffle towards the front door, my arthritic hands trembling. Who could be knocking at this ungodly hour, in the middle of a raging blizzard? I crack open the door, and my heart shatters. There, shivering on my doorstep, is Theo, my precious grandson. His tear-stained face is pale, his lips tinged blue. "Grandma," he whimpers, "I'm so cold and hungry." I usher him inside, my mind reeling. "Theo, sweetheart, what are you doing here? Where are your parents?" He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a pain no child should know. They told me to wait in the car, but it was so cold, Grandma. I waited for hours, but they never came back. Anger boils in my veins, but I push it down. Right now, Theo needs me. I wrap him in a warm embrace, feeling his small body tremble against mine. "It's okay, darling, you're safe now. Let's get you warmed up and fed." As I prepare a steaming bowl of chicken soup, Theo sits at the kitchen table, his thin shoulders hunched. The sight breaks my heart. How could Marla and Jonah do this to their own child? "Here you go, sweetheart. Eat up." I place the bowl in front of him, and he devours it like he hasn't eaten in days. Perhaps he hasn't. "Grandma," he says between spoonfuls, "I don't want to go back. They forget about me. I'm always alone." Tears sting my eyes, but I blink them away. I need to be strong for Theo. "You don't have to go back, darling. You can stay with me as long as you need." As I tuck Theo into bed that night, his small hand clutches mine. "I love you, Grandma," he whispers, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I love you too, Theo. More than anything." Long after he drifts off to sleep, I sit in the darkness, my mind churning. How could I have let this happen? I knew Marla and Jonah were irresponsible, but this is unforgivable. I think back to when Marla was growing up, how I poured my heart and soul into raising her. But somewhere along the way, she changed. She became distant, entitled. She met Jonah, and things only got worse. They'd show up at my door, demanding money, claiming they were struggling. But I saw through their lies. Designer clothes, fancy cars, lavish vacations. They were living the high life while their son suffered. I tried to reason with them, to make them see the error of their ways. But they brushed me off, mocking my concerns. "You're just a bitter old woman," Marla sneered. "You don't understand our lives." But I understand all too well. I've seen the pain in Theo's eyes, the longing for love and attention, and I'll be damned if I let it continue. As the blizzard rages on outside, I make a silent vow. I will protect Theo, no matter the cost. I will give him the love and stability he deserves, and I will make Marla and Jonah pay for their neglect. They may have forgotten their responsibilities, but I will not forget this injustice. The storm inside me is just beginning, and I will not rest until Theo is safe and his parents face the consequences of their actions. I wake up to the sound of Theo's soft snores, his small body curled up beside me. The events of last night flood back, and I feel a fresh wave of anger wash over me. How could Marla, my own daughter, neglect her child like this? As I make breakfast, my mind drifts to the past. I remember the day Marla was born, the joy and love that filled my heart. I devoted my life to raising her, sacrificing my own dreams to ensure she had every opportunity. But as she grew older, something changed. She became distant, always demanding more. More money, more attention, more freedom. I tried to guide her, to teach her the value of hard work and responsibility, but she pushed me away. "You're suffocating me," she'd scream. "I'm an adult now. I don't need you telling me what to do." When she met Jonah, I had hoped he would be a stabilizing force in her life, but he was just as reckless and irresponsible as she was. They'd come to me, begging for money, spinning tales of hardship and struggle. At first, I believed them. I gave them what I could, even when it meant sacrificing my own comfort. But then I started to notice the signs, the expensive clothes, the flashy gadgets, the constant partying. I confronted them, my voice shaking with anger and disappointment. "How can you live like this?" I asked. "What about Theo? What about your responsibilities?" Marla laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Responsibilities? We're young, Mom. We deserve to have fun. Theo's fine. He's got a roof over his head and food in his belly. What more does he need?" I was stunned, my heart breaking at her callous words. "He needs love, Marla. He needs his parents." Jonah stepped forward, his face twisted in a sneer. "Love doesn't pay the bills, old woman. We're doing the best we can. If you're so concerned, why don't you take him?" I opened my mouth to respond, but they were already walking away, their laughter echoing in the air. That was the last time I saw them, until last night when Theo showed up at my door, shivering and alone. A small hand tugs at my sleeve, pulling me from my thoughts. "Grandma, I'm hungry." I smile down at Theo, pushing away the painful memories. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you some breakfast." As we eat, I watch Theo taking in his thin frame and the shadows under his eyes. He's been through so much, more than any child should have to bear. "Theo," I say softly, "I want you to know that you can always come to me. No matter what, I will always be here for you." He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. "I know, Grandma, you're the only one who cares about me." Those words, spoken with such certainty, break my heart all over again, but they also fuel my determination. I will not let Marla and Jonah continue to neglect their son. I will not let Theo suffer any longer. I may be just a retired school teacher, but I have a lifetime of experience and a grandmother's love on my side. I will gather the evidence I need, no matter how long it takes. I will fight for Theo's future, even if it means going against my own daughter. Marla and Jonah may have forgotten what it means to be a parent, but I will never forget what it means to be a grandmother, and I will do whatever it takes to give Theo the life he deserves. Days turn into weeks, and Theo starts to open up to me. We spend our evenings curled up on the couch, watching his favorite movies and sharing stories. It's during one of these moments that he begins to talk about his life with Marla and Jonah. "They always forget about me," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "They leave me alone for hours, sometimes days. I get so hungry, Grandma." My heart clenches, and I pull him closer. "What do you do when you're hungry, sweetheart?" He shrugs, his small shoulders heavy with burden. "I try to find food in the kitchen, but there's never much. Mommy and Daddy buy lots of stuff for themselves, but they forget to buy food for me." Anger boils inside me, but I keep my voice steady. "What kind of stuff do they buy, Theo?" "Lots of clothes and shiny things. Daddy always has a new watch or a new phone, and Mommy buys so many shoes and bags. But when I ask for new clothes or toys, they say we don't have money." I close my eyes, trying to calm the rage that threatens to consume me. How can they be so selfish, so negligent? "Theo, I want you to know that what they're doing is wrong. You deserve so much better, and I'm going to make sure you get it." He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a tentative hope. "Really, Grandma? You promise?" "I promise, sweetheart, I won't let them hurt you anymore." That night, as Theo sleeps, I start to plan. I know I need evidence, solid proof of Marla and Jonah's neglect. I can't just make accusations without backing them up. I start to keep a journal, documenting every detail Theo shares with me. Every missed meal, every lonely night, every broken promise. It breaks my heart to write it all down, but I know it's necessary. I also begin to track their spending, using the skills I learned as a school teacher to create detailed spreadsheets. Designer clothes, expensive gadgets, lavish vacations, all while their son goes hungry and neglected. Weeks turn into months, and my evidence grows. Theo starts to thrive under my care, his laughter filling the house once more. He excels in school, makes new friends, and discovers a love for painting. But the shadow of his parents' neglect still hangs over him. He has nightmares, waking up screaming in the middle of the night. He flinches at loud noises and unexpected touches. The scars they've left on his heart will take time to heal. One evening, as we're sitting at the dinner table, Theo looks up at me with a seriousness that breaks my heart. "Grandma, do you think Mommy and Daddy love me?" I reach across the table, taking his small hand in mine. "I think they love you in their own way, Theo, but sometimes people make bad choices. They forget what's really important." He nods, his eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. "I'm glad I have you, Grandma. You always remember what's important." Tears fill my eyes and I squeeze his hand. "And I always will, sweetheart. I will always put you first. Always." That night, as I tuck Theo into bed, I make a silent promise. I will confront Marla and Jonah. I will make them see the error of their ways. And if they don't change, if they don't step up and be the parents Theo deserves, I will take action. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power of love and the strength of determination on my side, and I will use every ounce of it to protect my grandson and give him the life he deserves. The day I've been dreading finally arrives. Marla and Jonah show up at my doorstep. their faces etched with same entitled smirks I've come to despise. They breeze past me into the living room, not even bothering to ask about Theo. "We need money, Mom," Marla says, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Jonah lost his job and we're struggling to make ends meet." I stare at her, incredulous. "You're struggling? What about Theo? Do you have any idea what he's been through?" Jonah scoffs, rolling his eyes. "Oh, please. The kid's fine. He's got a roof over his head and clothes on his back. What more does he need?" Anger surges through me, hot and fierce. "He needs love, Jonah. He needs attention and care. He needs parents who put him first." Marla laughs, a harsh, grating sound. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Mom. We're doing the best we can. Now, are you going to help us or not?" I take a deep breath, trying to calm the rage that threatens to consume me. "No, Marla, I'm not going to help you. Not until you start being the parents Theo deserves." Their faces twist with anger, and Jonah takes a step forward, his fists clenched. "You don't get to tell us how to raise our kid, old woman. We're his parents, not you." I stand my ground, meeting his gaze head-on. "Parents, you don't deserve to call yourselves that. Theo has been here for months, and not once have you checked on him. Not once have you asked about his well-being." Marla rolls her eyes, her lips curled in a sneer. "He's just a kid, Mom. He doesn't know what he wants. We're the adults here." I shake my head, my heart breaking for the child they've so carelessly cast aside. "Theo knows exactly what he wants, Marla. He wants love, he wants attention, he wants to feel like he matters." Jonah laughs, a cold, cruel sound. "Love isn't going to pay our bills or put food on the table. We need money, and we need it now." I feel a surge of anger so strong it nearly takes my breath away. "Get out of my house. Now." Marla's eyes widen and she takes a step back. "What?" "You heard me. Get out, and don't come back until you're ready to be the parents Theo deserves." Jonah's face turns red and he takes a menacing step forward. "You can't do this. He's our kid, not yours." I stand tall, my voice steady and firm. "Watch me. I will do whatever it takes to protect Theo from your neglect and selfishness, even if it means going against my own daughter." Marla's eyes narrow, and she grabs Jonah's arm. "Come on, we don't need this. We'll find the money somewhere else." They storm out of the house, slamming the door behind them. I sink onto the couch, my heart racing and my hands shaking. I know I've just crossed a line, but I don't care. Theo's well-being is all that matters now. I hear a small voice from the doorway, and I look up to see Theo standing there, his eyes wide and frightened. "Grandma, are you okay?" I open my arms, and he runs into them, burying his face in my chest. I hold him tight, my heart swelling with love and determination. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay, I promise." As I hold Theo in my arms, I know that I've just started a war. Marla and Jonah won't give up easily, and they'll do everything in their power to make my life a living hell. But I'm ready for the fight. I have the truth on my side, and I have the love of a child who deserves so much better. I will not back down. I will not let them win. I will fight for Theo's future, no matter what it takes. The confrontation with Marla and Jonah leaves me shaken, but more determined than ever. I know I need to act fast, to gather the evidence I need to protect Theo. I can't let them take him back, not when he's just starting to heal. I spend the next few days making phone calls and doing research. I hire a private investigator, a woman named Sarah, who comes highly recommended. She listens to my story with a sympathetic ear and promises to do everything she can to help. "I've seen cases like this before," she says, her voice gentle but firm. "Parents who prioritize their own wants over their child's needs. It's a tough battle, but it's one worth fighting." I nod, my heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I would do without your help." She smiles, patting my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Celine. Theo is lucky to have you in his corner." With Sarah on the case, I turn my attention to documenting Theo's time with me. I start a journal, writing down every milestone and every happy moment. I take pictures of him laughing, playing, and thriving in my care. I also start to gather evidence of my own financial stability. I may be a retired school teacher, but I've always been careful with my money. I have a comfortable savings account and a paid-off mortgage. I can provide for Theo in ways that Marla and Jonah never could. Theo seems to sense the change in me, the newfound purpose that drives my every action. He starts to open up more, sharing his fears and his hopes for the future. Grandma, do you think I could be an artist someday? He asks one evening, as we sit together on the porch swing. I smile, my heart swelling with pride. Of course you can, sweetheart. You can be anything you want to be, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way. He leans his head against my shoulder, his small body relaxing into mine. I love you, Grandma. Thank you for taking care of me. Tears fill my eyes, and I wrap my arms around him, holding him close. I love you too, Theo. More than anything in this world. As the weeks pass, Sarah keeps me updated on her progress. She's managed to document Marla and Jonah's lavish spending habits, their frequent trips to expensive restaurants and exclusive clubs. She's also captured photos of Theo's old room, the bare walls and the empty fridge. It's clear that they're not providing for his basic needs, she says, her voice tight with anger. No child should have to live like that. I nod, my heart breaking all over again. What's our next step? Sarah takes a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. We file for emergency custody. We present the evidence to a judge and show them that Theo is better off in your care. I feel a flicker of fear, but I push it down. I know this is the right thing to do. I know this is what Theo needs. Let's do it, I say, my voice steady and strong. Let's fight for Theo's future. That night, as I tuck Theo into bed, I make him a promise. I will always fight for you, sweetheart. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says. You are my world, and I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and happy. He smiles up at me, his eyes shining with love and trust. I know you will, Grandma. You're my hero. I kiss his forehead, my heart swelling with a fierce, unshakable love. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power to change Theo's life, and I will not rest until he has the future he deserves. The day I've been waiting for finally arrives. Sarah calls me, her voice tight with excitement. I have the evidence, Celine. It's even worse than we thought. I feel a chill run down my spine. I have my heart pounding in my chest. What did you find? I managed to get my hands on their bank statements and credit card bills. They've been spending thousands of dollars on designer clothes, expensive dinners, and lavish vacations. Meanwhile, Theo's school records show that he's been showing up to class in worn-out clothes and without lunch money. I close my eyes, my stomach churning with anger and disgust. That's not all, Sarah continues, her voice trembling with rage. I also got footage from a hidden camera I placed outside their house. It shows Marla and Jonah leaving Theo alone for hours on end, sometimes even overnight, while they're out partying and living it up. Tears fill my eyes and I grip the phone tighter. I knew it was bad, but this is unforgivable. We have more than enough evidence to file for emergency custody, Sarah says, her voice firm and determined. I'll start putting together the paperwork right away. Thank you, Sarah, I whisper, my heart swelling with gratitude. I don't know what I would do without you. You're welcome, Celine. Theo is lucky to have you fighting for him. I hang up the phone, my mind reeling with the weight of what I've just learned. I knew Marla and Jonah were neglectful, but seeing the proof laid out in front of me is a whole different level of horror. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the rage that courses through my veins. I know I need to be strong for Theo, to show him that he has someone in his corner who will never let him down. I find him in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. He looks up when I enter, his eyes wide and curious. Is everything okay, Grandma? I sit down beside him, taking his small hand in mine. Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart. I have some news for you. He sits up straighter, his face etched with concern. What is it? I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I've been working with a private investigator to gather evidence of how your parents have been treating you, and we've found enough to prove that you're better off living with me. His eyes widen and he squeezes my hand tighter. You mean I don't have to go back to them? I shake my head, my heart breaking at the relief in his voice. No, sweetheart, you never have to go back to them again. I'm going to fight for custody of you to make sure you have a safe and happy home. Tears fill his eyes and he throws his arms around me, burying his face in my chest. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you so much. I hold him tight, my own tears falling freely. You don't have to thank me, Theo. You deserve so much better than what they've given you, and I'm going to make sure you get it. We sit like that for a long time, holding each other and crying tears of relief and joy. I know the road ahead won't be easy, that Marla and Jonah will fight me every step of the way. But I also know that I have the truth on my side and the love of a child who deserves the world. And I will not rest until he has the life he's always dreamed of. As the sun sets outside the window, casting a warm glow over the room, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power to change Theo's life, and I will not let him down. The courtroom is packed, the air thick with tension and anticipation. I sit beside Theo, holding his hand tightly as we wait for the judge to enter. Sarah is on my other side, her presence a comforting reminder of the truth we're fighting for. Marla and Jonah sit across the aisle, their faces etched with anger and resentment. They glare at me, their eyes filled with a hatred that takes my breath away. But I refuse to back down, refuse to let them intimidate me. The judge enters and the room falls silent. He's an older man, with a kind face and a no-nonsense demeanor. He looks at Theo, his eyes softening with compassion. "We're here today to determine the best interests of the child, Theo," he says, his voice firm but gentle. "I've reviewed the evidence presented by both sides, and I must say I'm deeply troubled by what I've seen." He turns to Marla and Jonah, his face hardening. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Bank statements, credit card bills, and video footage all show a pattern of neglect and emotional abuse. You've consistently prioritized your own wants and needs over the well-being of your child." Marla stands up, her face flushed with anger. "That's not true," she shouts, her voice shrill and desperate. "We love Theo. We've always done what's best for him." The judge shakes his head, his eyes narrowing. "The evidence says otherwise, Mrs. Johnson. You've left your child alone for hours, even days at a time. You've failed to provide him with basic necessities like food and clothing, and you've repeatedly ignored his emotional needs in favor of your own selfish desires." Jonah stands up, his fists clenched at his sides. "This is all her fault," he yells, pointing at me. "She's poisoned Theo against us. She's just a bitter old woman who wants to steal our son." I feel Theo flinch beside me, and I squeeze his hand tighter. The judge turns to me, his face softening. "Miss Celine, I've reviewed the documentation you've provided of your time with Theo. It's clear that you've provided him with a stable, loving home. You've put his needs first, and you've given him the emotional support he so desperately needs." Tears fill my eyes and I nod, my voice trembling. "I love Theo with all my heart. All I want is for him to have the life he deserves." The judge nods, his face etched with determination. And that's exactly what he's going to get. He turns back to Marla and Jonah, his voice firm and uncompromising. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I'm granting full custody of Theo to his grandmother, effective immediately. You will have supervised visitation once a month, but only if Theo wants to see you. And you will be required to attend parenting classes and therapy sessions to address your neglectful behavior." Marla collapses into her seat, her face buried in her hands. Jonah stands there, his mouth hanging open in shock. The judge turns to Theo, his face softening once again. "Theo, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. You are a brave, wonderful child, and you deserve all the love and happiness in the world. Your grandmother is going to take good care of you, and you never have to worry about being neglected or forgotten again." Theo looks up at me, his eyes shining with tears. "Thank you, Grandma," he whispers, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for fighting for me." I wrap my arms around him, holding him close as the tears stream down my face. "I will always fight for you, sweetheart. Always." As we leave the courtroom, hand in hand, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. The battle is won, but the healing has just begun. I know there will be tough days ahead, moments when Theo's pain and trauma will threaten to overwhelm him, but I also know that I will be there for him every step of the way. I will love him, support him, and guide him towards the bright future he deserves, and I will never, ever let him forget how much he is loved. The days after the custody hearing are a whirlwind of activity. Theo and I settle into a new routine, one filled with laughter, love, and endless possibilities. We enroll him in a new school, one with a strong arts program and a nurturing environment. Theo thrives in his new surroundings, his confidence growing with each passing day. He makes new friends, joins the school's art club, and even starts taking piano lessons. I watch with pride as he blossoms into the happy, healthy child he was always meant to be. But the scars of his past are never far from the surface. There are nights when he wakes up screaming, his nightmares filled with the echoes of Marla and Jonah's neglect. There are moments when he flinches at loud noises or unexpected touches, his body still remembering the trauma he endured. But through it all, I am there for him. I hold him when he cries, soothe him when he's scared, and remind him every day of how loved and valued he is. Slowly but surely, the wounds begin to heal, and the light returns to his eyes. Marla and Jonah, on the other hand, face the consequences of their actions. The judge's ruling sends shockwaves through our small town, and soon the whispers begin. People who once admired them for their wealth and status now look at them with disgust and contempt. They lose friends, business deals, and their once pristine reputation. Marla tries to play the victim, spinning tales of how I stole her child and ruined her life. But no one believes her, not when the evidence of her neglect is so clear. Jonah, unable to handle the shame and humiliation, leaves town in the middle of the night, never to be seen again. Marla is left alone, a shell of the woman she once was. I almost feel sorry for her until I remember the pain she inflicted on her own child. Months pass and life settles into a new normal. Theo and I create new traditions, new memories to replace the painful ones of his past. We have movie nights and game nights, weekend hikes and lazy Sundays spent painting in the backyard. And then one day, something remarkable happens. Theo comes home from school, his face flushed with excitement. "Grandma, guess what? My artwork is going to be featured in the school's art show." I feel a surge of pride so strong it nearly takes my breath away. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." He beams at me, his eyes shining with joy. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You believed in me when no one else did." Tears fill my eyes and I pull him into a tight hug. "I will always believe in you, Theo. Always." The night of the art show arrives, and Theo's piece is the star of the show. It's a beautiful painting of a phoenix rising from the ashes, its wings spread wide against a blazing sky. The symbolism is clear, and it takes my breath away. As we stand there admiring his work, a familiar voice cuts through the crowd. "Theo? Is that you?" We turn to see Marla standing there, her face etched with a mix of shock and longing. Theo stiffens beside me, his hand reaching for mine. "What are you doing here?" I ask, my voice cold and unforgiving. Marla takes a step forward, her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to see my son's artwork. I wanted to tell him how proud I am of him." Theo looks up at me, his face conflicted. I squeeze his hand, giving him the strength he needs. "You lost the right to be proud of me when you abandoned me," he says, his voice trembling but strong. "Grandma is my family now. She's the one who loves me and takes care of me." Marla's face crumples, and she nods, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I know, and I'm sorry, Theo. I'm so sorry for everything." She turns to walk away, but Theo's voice stops her. "I forgive you, Mom, but I can't forget what you did. I hope you find peace, but I've already found mine." As we watch her walk away, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. The past will always be a part of us, but it doesn't define us. Theo is living proof of that. We may have started as two broken souls, but together we've created something beautiful. A family built on love, trust, and the unshakable bond between a grandmother and her grandson. And as we walk out of the art show, hand in hand, I know that no matter what the future holds, we'll face it together. Always.